Hi everybody, welcome to Studio Classroom Worldwide. My name is Steve. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day to study English with us. We appreciate it. Well, you used to see it mostly in the Western world, but now it's pretty common in the East too. It used to start in the first or second week of December, but now it happens as early as October. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Christmas. Now, friends, you do know that ringing bells, evergreen trees, talking snowmen, and flying reindeer have nothing to do with the real meaning of Christmas, right? Oh, you don't know that yet? Well, then let's find out what this Christmas holiday is really about as we open our magazines to page 42 and begin reading When the Gift Meets the Need.
When the gift meets the need. The joy of Christmas. My parents grew up during the Depression attending small country churches. At the close of Christmas Eve services, children were called down front. Each one was given a brown paper sack containing an apple, an orange, nuts still in their shells, and several chocolates. Years later, whenever Dad recalled that tradition, his eyes sparkled, reliving the memory. My mother not so much. She always said she suspected the chocolates had been pre-sucked. They tasted cheap and old. You can't blame the woman.
Hello, friends. Thank you so much for joining us here in the studio. My name is Kayla.
My name is Ryan. Friends, Merry Christmas Eve. It is the day before Christmas, and it's time to start thinking about when the gift meets the need.
That's right. Now, hopefully your Christmas shopping is done by now, but did you really think about getting a gift that meets the need? Now, when someone meets the need, that means it fulfills or solves whatever the need would be.
That's right. It does what it is supposed to do. So we're looking not only at gifts, but specifically at the joy of Christmas.
That's right. Today, our author is going to talk about giving gifts and how to give gifts that have meaning, that have importance. She starts off with telling us a bit about her family.
That's right. Most of this article is written as a story, and the author's name here is Lori. She says, "My parents grew up during the Depression, attending small country churches." Now,
the Depression, you see, depression is capitalized. This is a proper noun referring to a time in American, actually in world history, during the 1930s when there was serious economic problems in the United States and in Europe. And especially in the United States, people were extremely poor, and they were in a country, so Ryan, it would have been even worse for them.
Exactly. They're in the country. That means they're outside of large cities. And this was a time in people's history where it was difficult to get jobs and make money.
That's right. So a lot of families didn't have very much money. It was a time of extreme poverty. People were very poor. Now, they went to church, though. So churches worked as a community, especially during these hard times.
Exactly. She says, at the close of the Christmas Eve services, that means at the end of the Christmas Eve services, children were called down front.
Now, at church, we do a Christmas Eve service to celebrate Christmas the next day. It's a time together to come together as a church and a community. Now, they would have the children come down to the front, which means they were called out of their seats to the front of the church.
Right, to go to the front of the church, even though we say down front, that means they walk down the aisles or down the middle to the front.
Now, each child was given a brown paper sack containing an apple, an orange, nuts still in their shells, and several chocolates.
Okay, so they got gifts here, including usually food. And what does it mean if a nut is still in its shell?
That means that it's still covered with the hard covering. You can't just put it in your mouth and eat it. You need to open it up before you eat it.
All right, now she says, years later, whenever Dad recalled that tradition, his eyes sparkled, reliving the memory.
Okay, when Dad recalled this. Now, to recall something means to bring the memory of a past event into your mind and to think about it, to be thinking about a specific event. So you recall the memory. He's thinking about this time in his life.
That's right, and in this case, he is also telling them a story again, and you can see that he is remembering it, and his eyes sparkle.
Now, to sparkle means to shine brightly with a lot of small points of light. Or when you're talking about your eyes, it means they're very energetic or very interested or exciting. So his eyes would sparkle. You can see him remembering.
Now, several days ago, we defined the word twinkle. Sparkle is actually very similar.
That's right. So it's beautiful. It means his eyes are kind of lighting up. Well, it was exciting to remember this. But my mother, not so much. So her dad is recalling it with sparkling eyes, but not so much her mom.
Yeah, not so much. Now, we have more information on that phrase with Liz in Grammar on the Go.
Hi there, friends. Welcome to Grammar on the Go. My name is Liz. In our Christmas article today, our writer describes how her father still thinks very fondly of a certain church tradition. But then the writer continues on with, my mother, not so much. That's our grammar tip sentence. It just means her mother does not feel so much fondness like the way her father does. Now, take a look again at today's sentence. Normally, a sentence should have a subject and a verb. Basically, it needs to say who or what is doing something. In today's sentence, the subject, or the who, is my mother. But then we don't see a verb after that. Instead, we have the phrase not so much. What we have here is a form of creative writing. The writer is writing as if she were talking. Normally, you should watch how you form your sentences. However, in creative writing, there is room to play around with the language. For example, let's say Bob and Billy are opposites. Instead of saying, Bob loves sports, but Billy hates it, you might see this instead. Bob loves sports, Billy, no way. Or, instead of saying, Billy enjoys art exhibits, but Bob doesn't, you might see, Billy enjoys art exhibits, Bob, not a chance. If you want to see more example sentences, you'll find them in today's grammar tips section in your magazine. Remember, there is room to play with the language when you do creative writing. But if you're writing a report for school or for work, remember to follow the grammar rules. This is Liz with Grammar on the Go, signing off. Bye-bye.
Well, even though her mother has the same memories, it's not as exciting for her because she always said she suspected the chocolates had been pre-sucked.
Okay, if you suspect something, that means you think something might be wrong. She said that the chocolates might be pre-sucked. That means someone had already tasted them before.
Ew, that's disgusting. I can understand that is definitely suspect. You don't want anyone eating your candy first. She said they tasted cheap and old.
That's right. They might not be already, nice chocolates because they taste very cheap, like they're not expensive enough.
That's right, that they're not very good quality chocolates. And I would suspect that as well. She's not thinking this is a good thing. She says, but our author doesn't really blame her. She says, you can't blame the woman. Okay,
now if you say you can't blame someone, that means, the word blame means that you think something is wrong with someone.
So it is not her fault, would be another way of saying it. You cannot put the blame or the fault on her, because probably other people think so as well. Well, what can't we blame her for? We'll find out after the skit.
Me too, especially on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, look, we each got a brown paper sack.
I can't wait. Let's look inside and see what we got.
Yeah. Wow, look at I got an apple.
Hooray! Woo! I got an apple too.
There's an orange in my bag.
Wow! There's an orange in my bag too. Hooray!
Yeah. Let's see if there's anything else. Ooh, there's some nuts with the shells on.
Nuts, and they're still in their shells.
Oh, look, some chocolates. Oh,
I love chocolates.
they look pre-sucked.
Yeah, and they smell cheap and old.
Oh, well, chocolates!
Yay! Cheap or not, these paper sacks with goodies are a Christmas event.
Yeah, gifts during this depression are so rare.
Yeah, especially in large farm families like ours.
Yeah. Oh, let's go tell our brothers and sisters. Maybe they can get bags too.
Yeah, Johnny loves apples, and Mary loves oranges.
And Susie loves nuts. And Peter loves chocolates.
Yeah, and Bobby loves brown bags.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay.
Welcome back, everybody. Don't you just love listening to your parents and grandparents tell stories about how things used to be when they were growing up? Well, that's what we're doing now. We're in the middle of a very charming story and a true story about a time not so long ago when getting an apple, an orange, a few walnuts, and some chocolates for Christmas was cause for great excitement. Let's get back to that story now on line 11.
When the gift meets the need. Even as a child, she had a discriminating palate. Cheap chocolates or not, the paper sacks with goodies were an event. Gifts of any sort during the Depression were rare, especially in large farm families with 7, 8, and 9 children. When our children were young, and we were home for Christmas one year, Mom and Dad gave each of the grandkids a brown paper sack holding an apple, an orange, some nuts, and chocolates. This was in addition to the mound of gifts beneath the tree.
We're listening from a story from our author, who is named Lori, and she's telling a story about her parents, remembering what happened in their past. Her father really enjoys remembering this story, but her mother not as much.
That's right. Now, they're actually remembering stories from their childhood during the Depression when they did not have very much money. But everyone was poor, but they made sure the kids at the church got gifts. Now, her dad likes the gift.
That's right. He thinks they did get gifts. They got chocolate and apples and candy in a brown paper bag. But her mother isn't so excited about it.
That's right. We said the very last thing we could say is you can't blame the woman for not enjoying the gift very much. But what can't we blame her for? Well, even as a child, she had a discriminating palate because she didn't like the chocolates.
Okay, now, she had a discriminating palate. Something that is discriminating means you're able to know and act on the difference between good and bad.
So she can tell the difference between good and bad things, but this is specifically to her palate. Now, your palate, when it refers to yours or your body, that is your ability to judge food and drinks if they are a good thing or a bad thing. So what is your palate? Do you have this good ability? She was discriminating, right? And she had a very strong ability to tell the difference between good and bad even as a child.
Exactly. This means that her mother here is very decisive, or she knows what kinds of foods she likes and what kinds she doesn't like, and she decided she didn't like those gifts.
But even if they were cheap chocolates, so cheap chocolates or not, the paper sacks with goodies were an event. So even though she didn't like the cheap chocolates, she enjoyed the event of getting a gift on Christmas Eve.
That's right. Now, we say this was an event, but of course we know it happened, and therefore it is an event. But if we're saying something was an event like this, it means it was a good time.
That's right. Why was it so special to get even just cheap chocolates? Well, it's because gifts of any sort during the Depression were rare.
That's right. Something that is rare means it doesn't happen very often. Remember, this is the Depression. People didn't have very much money.
So if there's not much money, there's not going to be very many gifts given, especially in large farm families with 7, 8, and 9 children.
That's right. The more children there were, the more difficult it was to get gifts for each one.
My grandfather did not get very many gifts when he was a child because he is one of 15 kids.
Wow, now that's amazing. And he was alive, pretty close to that time.
That's right. So his family didn't get very many gifts, just like these children. But, when you're a child, when you're young, you do want Christmas gifts.
Okay, so now, friends, let's skip ahead now to the story now that an author is telling about her own children.
That's right. So when she says our children, these are her kids. And when they were young, she took them back home to her house for Christmas.
That's right. She says mom and dad. So the author's mom and dad gave each of the grandkids a brown paper sack holding, guess what, an apple, an orange, some nuts, and chocolates.
That's because this had special meaning to the grandparents. Now, this was in addition to the mound of gifts beneath the tree, which is different from the grandparents' story.
Exactly. So the kids already got a mound of gifts. Now, a mound means a pile of something, many.
Ryan, does this mean the gifts were actually piled?
Well, technically they could be, but usually when we describe a mound of gifts, that means there are many of them together.
That's right. So it's a lot of gifts. Kids sometimes get a lot of gifts at Christmas. Well, the grandparents have these special memories of getting these brown paper bags with these special treats in them. And if you look on page 43 in your magazine, at the top of the page, you can see what that gift might have looked like all wrapped up. So they gave it to their grandkids because to them, it was special.
And it was special to them because that's what happened to them in their childhood. They gave it to their kids.
That's right. Now, Ryan, if you were a child and got a brown bag with food in it, would you be thankful?
I might eat it, but maybe I wouldn't think it was the best Christmas gift.
That's right. I think I would be like, this is kind of strange. I got all kinds of other stuff, and I eat apples all the time. So maybe the kids don't appreciate it. And we're going to look at what happens to these gifts tomorrow and learn what we can do to make a gift important.
Friends, we'll see you tomorrow on Christmas Day. But first, let's visit the chat room.
Hey, Ken, do you have any plans for tonight?
Not yet. Why?
I'm holding a Christmas Eve party at my house, and I'd like to invite you to come.
Oh, thanks, Brian. I'd love to come. Will there be a lot of people there?
Oh, yes, it'll definitely be an event. We're making lots of food, and we'll have music and other activities.
Wow, it sounds great, but you don't have to tell me it's an event. All parties are events.
Well, I guess you're right, Ken, but I was using a different meaning of event. When you say something is an event, it can mean that it's something special and exciting.
Oh, I see. Is that like when you talk about something being the main event?
Not exactly. The main event is the most important part of something larger that is happening, but something that is an event stands alone. For example, a concert with several bands playing would be an event, but the most famous band's performance would be the main event.
I get it. So what will be the main event at your party?
That would probably be my wife's chocolate cake. It's delicious.
That sounds great. Now I can't wait.
Another way of saying something is an event is saying it's a big deal. That means it's really important, and a lot of people care about it.
Oh, yes, I've heard that before. But don't people often say big deal to mean that something isn't important?
Yes, people will often use big deal sarcastically, but you can usually tell by their tone of voice. For example, if someone criticizes something you do, but you don't think it's a problem, you could reply, big deal. But sarcasm is a bit rude, Ken, so be careful when you use it.
Okay, I will. Well, I'm really excited about your party. Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome, and see you tonight.
一起来看 event 这个字 ，event 可以指某一个事件，一个会议是一个 event， 一场比赛也是个 event。但是 event 呢，也有一个比较口语的用法，表示一件大事或者令人感到意外或高兴的事。比如说 ，His visit was quite an event， 他的来访确实是一件大事。今天的课文提到 cheap chocolates or not, the paper sacks with goodies were an event。不管巧克力品质差不差，可以拿到那袋装着礼物的纸袋，就是令人很兴奋的一件事。另一个也是很口语的讲法是 a big deal， 就是一个了不起的大事。所以同一句话呢，也可以说 the paper sacks with goodies were a big deal。另外 the main event 是一个活动当中最主要的项目，一场表演的 main event 就是那个压轴戏。好，我们下次图书馆见。
Hi everyone, I'm Michelle. 这篇文章的第一个重点，我们来看 recall 这个动词。re 这个字首有再一次的意思，所以 recall 是指回想或回忆。例如 Lawrence recalls the wonderful time spent with his grandparents as a child. Lawrence 回想起小时候和祖父母共度的美好时光。或者是 I don't recall meeting that man before. 我想不起来曾经有跟这位男士见过面。继续我们看的是 discriminating 这个形容词，它原本是 discriminate 区别或分别这个动词的现代分词，当形容词是指有分辨力的、判断力强的，或者是有鉴赏力的。例如 the food served in this restaurant can satisfy the most discriminating customers. 这家餐厅所提供的食物可以满足最有鉴赏力的顾客。或者是 as a discriminating moviegoer, I have to say this is a very entertaining film. 身为一位非常具有鉴赏力的观众，我必须说这部电影很具娱乐性。最后我们看的是 mound 这个名词， mound 是指一堆或者是小山丘。例如 you can see mounds of books in Eric's study. He hasn't had the time to sort them. 你可以看到 Eric 的书房里面有成堆成堆的书，他还没有时间整理。或者是These mounds of dishes and dirty laundry need to be washed. 这些堆积如山的盘子和脏衣服都需要清理。And I guess we have to say goodbye now. Take care and I'll see you soon.
Friends, tonight is Christmas Eve. How will you celebrate? Maybe, like millions of other people around the world, you'll get together for a family dinner, throw an office party, go to a Christmas music concert, or attend a church service. These are all great things, but remember, in all the noise and excitement, somewhere, hidden by all the shopping and the gift-giving, there is a truth about Christmas that could profoundly change your life. Join us tomorrow as we learn more about a Christmas gift that meets a need. Until then, peace and goodwill to everyone. Merry Christmas.
Give it a try. Studio Classroom Worldwide. At Studio Classroom, you'll find a way to broaden your mind. This class is perfect for me and my vocabulary. Make a friend for life. Make us your friend for life. At Studio Classroom Worldwide. Your friend for life. Make a friend for life. Make us your friend for life. At Studio Classroom Worldwide. Studio Classroom Worldwide.